So, Dr. Key, welcome. Thank you so much for making the time today to talk about the professional shifts, which you embody just on your journey, because you started out in education and you shifted into entrepreneurship. So, tell us, how did you make that decision? What was happening in your life at the time that made you step out to really start the Village Market?
First, before I answer that question, Candace, thank you so much for having me
Mhm.
to be a part of this very powerful, powerful summit, the shift, and all those
Of
listeners.
course,
I'm so
thank
happy
you.
that you all are tuned in as well. But Candace, thank
Mhm,
you so much. Now,
mhm,
to answer
absolutely.
the question, how did I make this
Mhm.
pivot out of
Yes.
traditional education to full-time entrepreneurship? I must tell you that I don't know if I intentionally started transitioning, um,
Mhm.
like it was an intentional thought. What
Yeah.
happened is, as I was teaching, and I still love teaching, still love students, still love teachers,
Mhm.
God was literally calling me in other spaces. And
Mm.
I can see myself in more of that entrepreneur space, having conversations like this. Also deeply desiring to be disruptive, because as much as I loved my students, as much as I love education, I am not
Mhm.
always in, inspired by the institution of education and the way that it is rendered to our children.
Right.
And
Right.
so when you are disrupted by nature, it's hard to
Mhm.
stay in something. And so
Mhm.
what was happening in my heart space, I was disenchanted with
Mhm.
policies, testing, the culture and
Mhm.
climate of education for young people and for teachers. But then I was being pulled in these other spaces to talk
Mhm.
about building community. And what was happening in the background of that, Candace, as I was talking about building community and taking myself outside of the classroom and then life in the world becoming my classroom, I then began to attract entrepreneurs. As I began to
Mm.
attract entrepreneurs, I began to ask questions about, well, why isn't your business accelerating?
Mhm.
What are those big scary dreams that you tell yourself at night, that maybe you told a few friends, but really it's just between you and God, and you're not clear if you can do it. And so many entrepreneurs share, with me that they had aspirations, but did not have the mindset or the belief that they could really do it. And that
Mm.
is how I began to start building what I look at as a modern village. That aspiration
Yes.
that if we can accelerate our dreams and create businesses, we can improve our communities. We can
Mhm.
really be a testament of the legacy and shifting generational narratives and curses. I think all of that can be done through entrepreneurship. So that it's not a pretty
Absolutely.
answer, but those who operate from a spiritual space understand that is God just has a way of just started to undoing things, and you
Right.
find yourself being built in something else. It's pretty amazing.
Exactly. And you said the perfect words, which it was a heart pull, right? And so a lot of you may be feeling the need to make a career change, right? And you're feeling that heart pull, and you may not know why you're going in that direction or getting insight into this new area. And you may feel like you know nothing about it, but your God is pulling you in that direction. And that's what it is. He's bringing you into alignment with your purpose. And, being an entrepreneur, your business becomes your purpose, right? It's one expression of your purpose. And so when you're called to build something, it will feel like you're stepping out into the unknown. I went through the same thing myself, shifting out of corporate America into entrepreneurship. And, I had that same realization that you did, like, this kind of, structure just, it didn't fit for me. Like, like I was sitting in my cubicle, like, man, I feel like I'm so much bigger than this. And it's kind of one of those things. It's a faith walk that leads you to your place of purpose, which you're establishing a modern village. And in the Black community, it's necessary because economic development is part of that foundation, right? And I believe we're in a set, divine time where the resources are being dispersed. The knowledge is being dispersed, the people are being dispersed, and we're disrupting those systems, right? And so, yeah, we're going to get into the education system tomorrow, because yeah, it's time to change everything about that. But as you've grown, Village Market, like, how have you thought about yourself now as a leader, right? Because part of that shift is now you're leading into the unknown, right? You're establishing this thing. So how did you cultivate yourself as a leader and grow in that way as the village was growing?
So I deeply believe that we're always being groomed to be who we are. And so
Mm-hmm.
I may not have led a company before leading the Village Market, but I had led teams. I led
Right.
education departments. I led
Mm-hmm.
training. I led
Mm-hmm.
conferences. I designed these things. And even when I was young, I was literally a leader in high school. I was a leader in college. And so
Mm-hmm.
how I see that is, though leading a company, leading the Village Market may be new, but being groomed to be a leader, I think I was literally pre-positioned from that when my mother pushed me out of her womb. I've always
Yes.
I've always been a leader. I've always been out front and loud and proud and humble and
Mm-hmm.
intentional. And I think all of those
Mm-hmm.
are the working ingredients of a good leader. Now, how I
Mm-hmm.
ensure that my leadership is constantly being nurtured. I have
Mm-hmm.
good counsel around me. I ask
Yes.
questions and I wait to hear the answer. I ask my team, is there something I could have said differently? Um,
Mm-hmm.
Having a strong emotional IQ is very necessary in leadership. And one of
Mm-hmm.
the other gifts of being a leader, there's a time to be on the stage and there's a time to sit in the audience. And I do
Mm-hmm.
both with the village. I do both with entrepreneurship because I have to be able to be a student in order to best understand how to lead the work that I'm doing. So I stay in a
Mm-hmm.
space of being extremely confident in my gifts. Um, Candace, I don't think there's anything that if God has said yes to it, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I walk in it, I can't fail at
Mm-hmm.
anything. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, I have unwavering belief in myself. But at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, I think good leadership is having that eye for humility, to know
Yes.
how to share space with other people. And it- and
Yes.
and it's constantly being at this time now, I think humility and confidence should be talked about in the same sentence. But I was groomed early on to be a leader, as I think everyone is groomed early on to do the things that we've been created to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I love how you were able to look back at your life to see how you've been groomed in many different ways along the way, because that gives you confidence and courage too, to say like, okay, I've been trained for this. Like, I don't have to go through formal training. I don't have to go get an MBA. Like, God has been training me this whole time. So, just looking back over your life, I think that we should have confidence that we don't necessarily have to have anything that you're saying, like, oh, I need this first to step out, like, oh, I need this to step out, like, it's actually all inside of you, but now it's time to activate it, right? Like, pull it out. And I believe that when you get to that place of faith, that faith starts to breed confidence, and as your confidence grows, that builds the courage to continue on. But you said the right thing, which is humility, and that has been my greatest ingredient for leadership growth is humility, right? And wise counsel. Like, I
Mhm.
got to a place of growth, in my business where I'm like, okay, I truly have never been here before. So let me talk to some people that have mastered this, right? Let me be humble to say, like, okay, I need help. Or, maybe, this advisor or mentor can help me structure this deal or structure this approach, and so humility is necessary. It's so
Absolutely.
necessary. I think we need to
Mhm.
hear that more. I think we
It
need
is.
to hear that more.
Yeah, humility is necessary. Um, and at the same time, it should be paired with confidence.
Yes, yes,
Because a
yes.
humble person with a profound disbelief in themselves is a
Right.
stagnant person. And so in
Yes, it
order
works hand in hand.
it works hand in hand. You have to have, in
Mhm.
order to walk in faith, you must be confident. And so
Mhm.
there's that piece of confidence is necessary. And you mentioned something around how we learn to get stronger in our walk. I think the win
Mhm.
is how we really
Mm.
start to activate our faith. The more we win at
Yeah,
things, the more we understand that, oh, I can do this. And these are subtle
right.
wins. Doesn't always have to be those big Instagrammable moments, but those day by day
Right.
wins is how our faith gets stronger.
Exactly. Sometimes it's those silent wins where you just
Mhm.
have to be like, yes, like I knew this. And this gets into battling imposter syndrome because, that was a giant for me for a long time in the beginning. And it stagnated my growth because, again, that disbelief was creeping in, right? The imposter syndrome. And I'm just, speaking on all the giants, you'll have to face, as you make this shift professionally. But just know that, you have everything in you to defeat that giant. And I know you've spoken on imposter syndrome and how you battle that. What are some things that you incorporate, like in your daily practice, or just how do you keep yourself, like, in your place of confidence?
I think I'm so happy that imposter syndrome is something that we talk about so
Mhm.
comfortably now.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
in order to because this thing is being talked about, people are finding comfort in anxiety,
Right.
um, because we didn't know what that was, and
Right.
almost
Mhm.
embarrassed that secretly you walk in a room with your head high, but your spirit is low because you don't think you're supposed to be there.
Mhm.
And I think every person, especially every person of color, in some way has experienced this before. And so when I
Mhm.
was experiencing my own journey of being new on the scene in Atlanta, transitioning from education, and Atlanta is very, Black and tech driven. And so
Mhm.
we want something a little bit different,
Right.
than
Mhm.
what, at that time, all the cool kids were
Mhm.
doing. Uh,
Right.
yeah, you wonder, where's my place in the sun? And
Yeah.
so, and I think we all battle it. I dealt with it as well. But I've always been so clear, Candace, that even if I didn't
Mhm.
fit in that room, I've always been clear that there's a room that I should make for myself. Um,
Yes.
and that's why I created the village. And that's why I create
Mhm.
everything, that I create. I'm not compelled to fit in places that take the life from me. Um,
Mhm.
but I am compelled to challenge whatever insecurity, because that's what imposter syndrome is. When you pull it back at its roots, is what are the insecurities and why are they here? What
Right.
are things that we've experienced that have affirmed to us that we're not supposed to be here? Because how I wake up and present myself ready for the world every day,
Mhm.
I affirm goodness in everything that comes into
Mm.
my path. And this is not
Mhm.
something that I'm never too busy for, because I
Right.
understand the intentionality of how I speak over my life, how I speak over
Yes.
my friends' lives, how I speak over my
Yes.
family, how I speak over the shift. I'm very clear
Yes.
that the greatest way I can protect myself is protecting what I believe in myself. And I think that's how
Right.
we begin to battle and confront Goliath, and that's what imposter
Mhm.
syndrome is. I think
Yes.
that's how we began to confront it. And then
Mhm.
nothing helps Black women more than finding another Black woman therapist, um,
Right.
who can see you in those spaces and can normalize some of these things and help you begin to do root cause analysis, because where
Mhm.
we are today is a sum of all our life experiences. And so whatever
Mhm.
disbelief we have is because those seeds have been planted so deep inside of us. And that's a hard work, and that's an uncomfortable work. And I don't think imposter syndrome is something that we can take a pill for, and it cures and it goes away. I think imposter syndrome will always, in a sense, literally agitate our spirit to keep telling us
Yeah.
to do the work. And,
Mhm.
and it keeps us
Exactly.
humble. Back to humility again. Keep doing the work. Keep
Exactly.
doing the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. And so I don't want you all to be afraid when it creeps back up again,
Yes.
because it's just something that you're meant to face, right? You know, if your life is the sum of all of your experiences, you have to face all those experiences that planted those seeds of imposter syndrome in the first place, right? And so for, some of us, it takes us all the way back to our childhood. It
Mhm.
takes us back 10 years, 20 years, right? And so it's a constant undoing. But guess what? You will get to a place where it tries to creep back in and you're like, oh, what is that?
Yeah.
Like,
We,
no, I'm
we
not
don't do that.
entertaining those thoughts anymore. Right. We don't do that no more.
Yeah.
I know who I am. I know who I am.
Right.
I got this. And so just
Absolutely.
keep doing the work, keep doing work and keep pushing through. And I love how you talked about, the feedback you get from your team, right? Because it takes a team to do this, y'all. Like we all start out, on our own in the beginning, right? But at some point, you need a team. You need another person that can help you execute on something. And in the beginning, you get free help, right? You get your friends, you get whoever can help you get to that destination. And then, you come to a place where you can hire a team. And so, how do you I love how you have shared about, how to build your team from a place of self awareness.
Mhm.
So, can you talk a little bit about that? Because something I had to push through was knowing how to hire, but knowing how to know my strengths and weaknesses and compensate for that. And I got it wrong for a while until I had this breakthrough. So talk about how does self-awareness come into hiring, which people probably don't put that together, but that's actually the secret, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the sauce. I think everything
Yeah.
is self-awareness. So,
Yes.
for my journey with leading a company and being able to attract the type of talent to really drive and grow the village, I did a self-assessment, a deep self-assessment on,
Hmm.
you're an all-star in this. You need to ride the bench on this. So those who
Right.
understand sports, you understand that analogy. You're
Yes.
on the bench. That is not your position. You should not be playing at that time.
That is not my
And
position,
yeah, that is
right?
not my position, and that's okay, because there's
Mhm.
literally every position should not be ours. In
Right.
order to get the best out of a thing, you really need talented folks around you. And so I'm very
Mhm.
clear that for me, I'm very talented in marketing. I'm very talented with operational management. These are
Mhm.
my brainchilds. The other stuff,
Mhm.
that's not my area. I should be on the bench. And so I began to hire talent that should be on the
Mhm.
starting lineup with me. That is how I look at it.
Yes.
I'm not building a mediocre team. I strive to build an all-star team. But in order to do that, you have to be able to look at yourself and assess that you don't know everything, and that
Right.
your best idea may not always be the best idea for the company, that somebody can come and take what you have and literally grow it beyond what you can. It doesn't take away from the visionary.
Yes.
It doesn't take away from the
Nope.
vessel, but you
Nope.
literally need that in order for your company to really grow. But in order to
Mhm.
grow your team, then you have to establish trust, because as you grow this
Yes.
talent, and if you haven't done
Yes.
self-awareness work, if you won't be prepared for the day that somebody thanks someone on your team and then thank you. And so
Right.
that, when you've been constantly been the one, you have to be prepared
Mhm.
for your ego to chill out, because there's no time.
Mhm.
You need to be clapping for your team. Clap for yourself too, but also
Yes.
clap for your team. But being able to identify talent is a gift. Being able to identify your weakness is a gift. And both of those are
Mhm.
necessary. And so I love to go
Mhm.
out and talk about the things that I'm not good at, because I'm very clear on, what God has gifted me in. But knowing when you should sit
Mhm.
on the bench is a gift. And so an exercise for entrepreneurs, I think as you build your team or as you imagine the team that you want for yourself, all the reasons
Mm-hmm.
why you sit on a bench in that position, because
Right.
those are the areas that you hire for first, because that is where you need the talent in order to help you grow as a leader, as a visionary, to really grow your
Mm-hmm.
company from a surviving space to a thriving space.
Yes, yes. And that's the journey to becoming sustainable, right?
Hmm.
Like that, and I think that's the shift, a lot of Black owned businesses need too, right? Is the path to sustainability,
Hmm.
and so many, again, you may be running the business on your own, still trying to do this thing on your own, but sit down and figure out who your starting lineup needs to be, right? And I don't want you all to think about any limitations when it comes to this, right? Because what's the first thing you think about is, oh, I can't afford to hire anybody, right? And that may
Absolutely.
keep you stagnant for a long time. But again, like, uh, give God room to move on your behalf, right? You have no idea how that person that you need can come into your life, right? You have no idea how just everything can, I call it a domino effect. Like when you line the right things up, you never know how you are actually inviting the thing that can come set off the chain reaction to get this thing going. But you have to start from a place of self-awareness to know, who do you need on your team, like who is your starting lineup. And it's very evident that you have mastered this, and now scaling, from a marketplace to now into retail, which is beautiful. I've been to the store, I came, showed my love, got some great things. Some of my friends are in the store, and it's just beautiful to see that, you have now accomplished this milestone. Because again, you never know how big this thing is going to get, right? Like, and you're just charting your own path. So how has it been to now be in the retail space with the Village Market?
Hard for all those who are
Mm,
retailers out there. Why didn't y'all
mm,
warn me? But no,
mm. Keep it
we,
real. Keep it
yeah,
real.
absolutely. I mean, because though I've produced marketplaces and then produced events and ran incubators,
Mhm.
retail is its own industry. So for me, I've been in business
Yes.
now for 10 months. This new arm of my business
Mhm.
is literally 10 months old. And so for
Mhm.
anyone who's been in business 10 months, you know the growing pains of that. You
Yeah.
know how you have to almost relearn something else. It
Yeah.
pushes it pushes something out of you. So it has been extremely uh, challenging. I love that space though.
Mhm.
And I don't think,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't think, you have to be
Mhm.
poised for the pressure. I love it because it
Mhm.
requires me to do deep dives to really understand systems. And so, though
Right.
we've been open for 10 months, we're one of the most profitable stores at Pond City Market. We are
Mhm.
now shifting the narrative of what people said was a dying industry. I'm booked now, Candace,
Mm.
to talk about how to survive, how to resuscitate retail, and these
Come
are
on
huge
now.
retailers that's reaching out and booking me to talk with their team and their staff. Like, how have you been
Mm.
able to resuscitate a dying industry? Um,
Wow.
and
Wow.
but that goes back to the talent of my team. That goes back to
Mhm.
how I am always a student. I
Mhm.
love the pressure. I love the pressure.
Mhm.
I do know at the end there's a diamond, and so I don't.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Always.
always. I don't
Always.
fold in that. And so retail is hard though. But I would do it all over again and again and again.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. And I want to, speaking of retail, I want to bring this back to something your grandmother mentioned, her wisdom and about cherishing every single customer, right? I loved when you shared that. And that's what retail is, right? Satisfying the customer, bringing customers into the door, reaching them wherever they are, omni-channel, experiential retail. Like it's a whole mammoth, right? So like what are you gleaning from that now? Like if taking your, wisdom, is timeless, right? So
Mhm.
how does this reflect now in where your business is, and what are some customer experiences that have brought you joy to keep you going through these challenges?
Absolutely. I have to, of course, extend all the love to my grandmother, who's an entrepreneur for a number of years.
Mhm.
She's my North Star when it comes to operating in the
Mhm.
highest level of excellence. And so, with
Yes.
her being a service-based business, she was a seamstress in the Mississippi Delta. And so, when she explained to me that you value every customer, for her, you she valued every single person that walked out of her house, walked in and out,
Mm.
their choir robes to their wedding dresses, to their prom dresses,
Mm.
to the school uniforms. Um, my grandmother literally still, if I challenge her today at 83 years old and I threw out a date, she could tell you the person, and she could tell you how old
Wow.
she could be now. Um,
Wow.
and because of that, she was able to be self-sustaining in Mississippi. Her only job ever working for anyone was when she was a child working in the cotton fields. And as soon as she
Wow.
literally began sewing, I think at 17, 18 years old, she never worked for anyone again. And so purchased her
Mm.
house, purchased her land, all by her own gifts. But she says that comes from two things: excellence and customer service. And so I've taken
Yes.
those things. I talk about these things because that is the way I was reared, that excellence in customer
Mm.
service. And in the retail space,
Mhm.
um, my team is trained, and thank God for Yolanda, who leads operations, trained that
Mm.
we are customer service driven. We're customer
Yes.
engagement driven. It's not that the customer is
Mhm.
always right, but the customer should always be heard. The customer should always be seen.
Yes.
Because I
Mhm.
don't think there are times the customers are right, but I do think we respect everyone enough to hear them.
Mhm.
So we've had
Mhm.
experiences with people coming in from all over the country now and outside of the country, who the reviews that they give us is that, oh my gosh, beyond that the store is beautiful, the team is amazing.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
that does everything to my spirit, because that is how you build and keep. When we talk about sustainability, you sustain,
Yes.
you are people facing by folks' experiences. You have to get those
Mhm.
repeat customers coming back. You have to have people because their experience was so good that they can't wait to tell somebody else. These are things that you can't pay
Right.
for. This is a part of
Right.
what you talk about, that end-to-end
Mhm.
omni-channel engagement. We do that as a team. Now, there have been moments, because there is no ship that's unperfect, okay? And so I would never be
Right.
in this space saying that we get customer service, right, every single day, because we don't. And we've had to train younger team
Mhm.
members about that customer experience. We
Mhm.
when the day has been long for them, and it's like, why we still have to say welcome to the village? Because this may be
Right.
your 100th person, but this is this person first time being there. And so every customer
Yes.
must get your best. So there have been moments when the reviews have been amazing. And there have been moments when we've had feedback like, well, this person, I was coming in and they didn't speak to me. And for us, that's just an
Mm.
opportunity to grow the talent, because we go
Right.
in those moments and we take that feedback and we retrain the team. So there's no
Mhm.
entrepreneur, for other entrepreneurs, if you have a rough day where something didn't go as well as you hoped it to be with a customer, then you have to go in and you fix that the best way you can. You address the problem.
Right.
There's no reason to
Right.
make excuses. Address the problem, whatever your customer service policy is. Make sure they're aware of that. But you have to own the mistake, and then train
Mhm.
the team that this is how we engage with our community. This is the service
Right.
they deserve. But there's no entrepreneur, no company that you're going to have some best days and you're going to have the worst days. And how you
Right.
grow from it is how honest and transparent you are in those experiences.
Exactly. And that goes back to, you never know what someone is going through, right?
Mhm.
The reason why they may have a attitude or a bad day or whatever, unhappy response, whatever, right? We're all humans, right? But what I've learned also is that there's always an opportunity to win the customer back, right? So
Mhm.
no matter what the feedback is, even if it's bad, you got 1 star, you got somebody who want a refund, somebody who's mad. There's always an opportunity to win back the customer. And so don't, be afraid to face that, and that just goes back to facing parts of ourselves. But we're all human and we have our days. But when
Mhm.
you accept the call of being an entrepreneur, you have a responsibility, right? You got to check
Absolutely.
your feelings at the door. You got to greet all the time, even when you're tired. And, that's just how it is, right?
Yeah.
But, I really commend you all because you all have grown in the most challenging time period in the history of our world, right? I mean, talk about, seeing the opportunity in every setback. Like the
Mhm.
pandemic, I mean, has been a huge setback for everyone in many ways, especially for retail. But seeing the opportunity in every setback, I think is definitely a skill too. Um, and some of you all who are making the professional shift may be navigating through a perceived setback, but it's actually setting you up in a particular way. And so you've shared about like being not reactionary, right, but responding to what's happening. And so I would love for you to share like what is your technique to see an opportunity in a setback, because again it's always kind of guiding you in a particular way. And how are you able to confidently go forward, during, such a challenging year?
Yeah. It's a really, really good question. I think the way that we respond in a time of pressure, in a time of crises, we had never experienced anything
Mm,
like a pandemic.
mm-mm,
I talked about being a leader when I was young, meaning that
mm-hmm,
I didn't grow into leadership overnight. I didn't grow to
mm-hmm,
have an unwavering spirit in the midst of a storm overnight. And that is
mm-hmm,
knowing how to be grounded. So when everything is happening all around me, Candace, I stand still. I don't react
mm,
to it. I don't sway with it. I stand still so I can be able to literally be all in my being at one time. And that helps
mm,
me understand, that keeps me from reacting, but that gives
mm-hmm,
me an opportunity to assess the landscape. For us
mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs, if you could ground yourself before you respond, ground
Right.
yourself before you get into a panic about a thing. And I have so much grace for panic because I understand it. But
Yeah.
the reason why I was able to execute in a time of a pandemic and open up a brand new business in a time of a pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
um, is because I didn't try to open it the day that the pandemic happened. I gave
Mm,
myself time. I gave myself
mm,
time to think about my own emotional well-being. I gave myself time to
mm-hmm,
think about the emotional well-being of the village, my team, and the brands that we
mm-hmm,
serve. And then
mm-hmm.
I asked God for guidance.
Yes.
So it's not something that I've been taught. It is
Right.
the discipline that I have is understanding in a space of crisis that we need to have a higher counsel. I didn't ask God to help me
Mm-hmm.
open a business. I asked God to give me vision on what to do. And
Yes, that's
and
the question,
that's the
right?
question. Like, I don't want to be that specific. Just tell me what you need me to do
Right,
now. And then
right.
the vision of the retail store, came to me. And I think once you
Mm,
trust the visions that God has given you, you don't question it. And so I didn't question it. I began to build,
mm,
but I did not have to build something that wasn't already there. It just changed its
mm.
form. I had everything that I
Right,
needed to open a retail store except for the keys to a store. I had the
right.
team in place. I had
Mm,
businesses in place. I had a community
mhm,
in place. I had
mhm.
designers in place. Everything that I needed. I had a broker in place.
Wow.
Literally everything. And this is for everyone to understand. Everything that we everything that we need is already done. And so
Mm,
the pandemic hit. I literally had to move what I was always doing and transform it
Mhm.
and put it in another place. But I didn't
Wow.
have to go build community. I didn't have to go like
Right.
build brands. I didn't have to like find a team. Everybody was there. And if
Wow.
that's not a testament of God's hand and God's
Yes.
will, I can't take any credit for that, Candace, other than being
Yeah.
a true child of God in a way that I know
Mhm.
how to sit still and be obedient.
Mhm. Wow. And that just shows you how you never know what you're being prepared for.
Mhm.
You never know. But it's the faith, the obedience, the courage, the humility. Your path is already making your way for you, and your
Absolutely.
gifts are always making room for you.
Absolutely.
So that is amazing,
Mm.
and that's a true testament to being prepared
Mhm.
for the promises in the pandemic, right?
Yep.
There are promises, because you could have also had a reaction like, "Oh, what are we going to do?" Like, "Oh, I guess we're going to have to hold off for some months." A lot
Mm.
a lot of people did, and but this is now there's an opportunity to kind of, like you said, get grounded
Mhm.
and just
Mhm.
ask God, what should I do next?
Mhm. And what have you already supplied me with? Because I didn't
Yes.
have any intentions on starting over. I literally
Wow.
had intentions of starting anew. That is it. And
Wow.
so I I think what's important though is for those who are listening to understand that this is just not true to my journey. This is true to all our journeys. That
Yes.
we truly do have every single thing that we need. If we're
Everything we
not in
need.
a place of desperation to find it,
Right.
you have to have peace in your gifts. The peace is
Yes.
what reveals to you that you truly have everything
Mhm.
that you need. And I have to say it again, this is not unique to me.
Mhm.
This is the divine grace and the mercy of God that he gives to all of us.
All of us.
Mhm.
Amen. Amen. Yes. Wow. Well, thank you so much. Just so beautiful. Thank you for your wisdom and your experience and sharing your journey. And you created the mantra, support is a verb, right?
Mhm.
Like support
Mhm.
is a verb. And you have I believe you have set a new standard for Black business excellence, and just what it means to support your village and build a village. And I think that's something unique to our culture. That's a unique component to how we've assembled, how we build. We were in villages. We started in
Yeah.
villages, right?
Mhm.
And we need
Mhm.
to get back to that, because so many of us are accustomed to doing things on our own and kind of being isolated and thinking we have to have it all. But this is what your village is about. So we can hear these things from people like you and be reminded of who we are and what God has already blessed us with.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. And are there any ways that we can support you? Like, what do you need right now at this stage in your journey?
Sure, and thank you so much again for that question, and thank you so much again for this
Mhm.
space. But to support, my good work that I'm doing in the village is in your fondest thoughts. Think of me. Um,
Yes.
think of me in the space of good, and I think that is the
Mhm.
way that we keep good vibrations going to each other.
Mhm.
And these entrepreneurs, that I have, I humbly serve with so much excitement
Mhm.
in my heart. You can support these entrepreneurs at thevillageretail.com. That's online. Or
Mhm.
if you are in Atlanta, come and see us. We're located on the
Yes.
second floor of Ponce City Market. It is all things ours. It's created
Yes.
for us and by us intentionally for the amplification of us. Candace, I'm so grateful that God allowed me to do this thing.
Mhm. Mhm. I'm grateful too. I'm grateful too. It's evident how transformative it is. So we will continue to send good energy, to you, to the entire village. And thank you again for making the time today to again share your wisdom. And I appreciate you so much.
The same. And blessings on this pivot, Candace. Blessings on
Thank
the
you.
pivot.
Listen, we moving.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yes, thank you again.